And I wanted to ask another question. I wanted to talk to you about Walter. He's sort of the voice of reason, or he's sort of the all-knowing old wise man in the film. He's a great, well-written character. And before I get into the character of Walter, I wanted to ask about the casting of Walter. Seems like a familiar person. David, how did you get David Cronenberg, the well-known director, to play a role in your film? How did that come to be?
It was very serendipitous, super duper serendipitous, because, we were, it was the hardest part to cast because, for me, and the way the character was written, the way I needed it to be personified is, it had to be an older actor. And for me, I wanted them to bring a certain level of persona to it inherently. So, you can stunt cast this thing. So like when you see a stunt cast, like maybe the first impression of it is a stunt casting, but obviously the character develops and becomes a different kind of thing. So it becomes more than stunt casting, but I sort of needed that initial kind of punch. So, obviously when we unveiled the film for the first time and nobody knew anything about it, when, the way this Walter character is revealed is almost like a Scooby-Doo moment, and like I needed that moment to have some sort of an impact. And so we needed an actor that could bring that inherently. But we were just having a really, really hard time casting this part. And because it became further and further into like, our drop dead day where we're like shooting this scene. And it happened that the introduction of Walter in the film was the very first thing we had to shoot in the schedule. So we were coming up against it. Everybody else was cast, but we couldn't cast this character. And so in sort of a Hail Mary desperation move, we looked around and be like, well, at this point, we can't even bring in an actor from LA or something because we just don't have enough time. So we need to find somebody local, but that checks off all these boxes. And then really there was only one person that kind of fit the bill, and that was David Cronenberg, who has acted before, sporadically. But I don't know him, so it was one of those things where it's like, let's give it a shot. And so in my mind, I was like, well, this is probably a waste of time, but nothing venture, nothing gain. And at this point, like, we're so desperate that, we sent him the script, and, he read the script within like 8 hours almost.
Wow.
And then said he was interested in doing it. So from the time that we sent him the script, I was sitting in his kitchen talking to him about the character, a couple of days later. And then a couple of days later after that, we were, throwing David Cronenberg in the middle of the Niagara River, so it's just one of those things where it just kind of serendipitously kind of happened. It was obviously very much, I was very, very lucky that way. When you make a movie, not everything breaks your way for sure. And sometimes things really don't break your way. But, in every film, you need a few things to break your way at least, and this was definitely one of them.